So I have been flying the DJI Neo2 for almost a month now, and there's something about it that took me longer than expected to put into words. Every time I launch it, I don't feel rushed, I don't feel careful, I don't feel like I'm managing a fragile machine. I just want to keep flying. Not because I'm chasing extreme speed or range or some cinematic trick shot, but because everything about how this drone behaves makes flying feel easy, calm, predictable. It's the kind of flying where you stop thinking about the drone and start thinking about where to go next, and then eventually the battery reminds you what category this drone actually lives in. Not in a dramatic way, not in a frustrating way, just enough to interrupt the flow. This video isn't really about battery life, and it's not a spec breakdown either. It's about why the Neo2 feels so close to being the perfect casual drone, and why the one thing that stops you from flying longer is also the thing that defines what this drone is meant to be. Let me explain. The first thing you notice with the Neo2 is how little friction there is between an idea and actually executing it. You launch, it locks in, and it just sits there. Stable, confident. Even when GPS isn't perfect, it doesn't panic or hunt for position. It settles quickly and stays predictable. That alone changes how you fly. You're not tiptoeing on the sticks, you're not constantly correcting small mistakes, you're not thinking about saving the shot, you're thinking about framing the next one. Small movements feel smooth, bigger movements feel controlled. When wind shows up, it doesn't slap the drone out of place. The drone answers back calmly, without drama. This is where Neo2 is a huge step up over the original Neo. Not because it's faster, not because it's louder, but because it feels grown up. The gimbal plays a big role here. The dual-axis stabilization combined with DJI's electronic smoothing keeps the horizon under control most of the time. When it does drift, the recovery is gentle, not abrupt. You don't get that nervous micro jitter that reminds you you're flying something tiny. Tracking adds to this feeling too. When you lock onto a person or subject, the drone doesn't feel stressed. It doesn't constantly overcorrect. It follows smoothly and recovers quickly if something gets in the way. That builds trust, and trust makes you want to keep flying. Once you trust the drone, you push a little further, you try another angle. You go a little lower, you think, okay, one more pass. That's where the Neo2 really shines. It encourages exploration. And then the battery. Here's the honest real-world part. If you fly the Neo2 the way most people actually do, quick climbs, braking, repositioning, some wind, some hovering, you're realistically looking at about 9 to 10 minutes of usable flight time before you should be thinking about landing safely. If you fly calmly, like slower movements, smoother lines, less aggressive inputs, you can stretch that to around 12 or 13 minutes. That's been very consistent for me. Not 18, not 19, and not because something is wrong. This doesn't feel like inefficiency. It feels like effort. The motors are stronger than the original Neo. The stabilization is constantly working. The flight controller is making small corrections all the time to keep footage clean. Obstacle sensing is active. The drone is doing a lot of thinking while you're enjoying how easy it feels to fly. All of that costs power. So even though the battery itself is more mature and better behaved than the original Neos, the drone is also asking more from it every second it's in the air. That's the trade-off. And this is where expectations matter. A lot of people assume that because Neo2 is better in so many ways, flight time should scale with it. But that's not how this category works. Neo2 isn't trying to be a long-duration drone. It's trying to be a confidence-first drone. It wants you to launch often. It wants you to land without stress. It wants you to relaunch without hesitation. That's why even with shorter flights, the experience feels more complete. I expected the battery life to annoy me more than it does. On paper, 9 to 13 minutes sounds limiting. In practice, it rarely feels that way. because I'm not wasting time fighting the drone, I'm not redoing shots because stabilization failed, I'm not abandoning clips because wind ruined the pass. I keep more footage, I relaunch more willingly, and I end sessions feeling satisfied instead of frustrated. Quick side note here, because it fits naturally, for a lot of the flying you're seeing in this video, I've been using ND filters from Freewell on the Neo2, and they've honestly been a really good match for how this drone flies. Because the Neo2 is already very stable. Controlling exposure properly makes a visible difference. Motion looks more natural, highlights don't clip as aggressively, and the files are easier to work with later. Especially in bright daylight, it helps the footage hold together instead of feeling harsh. If you already own a Neo2 and you're flying outside a lot, this is one of those small add-ons that genuinely make sense. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check them out. As always, only grab them if they fit how you shoot. I don't recommend accessories just to recommend them. Now, back to the drone itself. This is where the Neo2 is imperfect in a very honest way. It gives you almost everything you want from a small drone: stability, trust, smooth footage, predictable behavior, and then it politely reminds you that physics still applies. For casual users, this balance actually works. If you're flying in parks, on trips, or around family, you're not doing marathon flights, you're capturing moments, short sequences, different angles, quick memories. In that context, the Neo2 feels matched to how people actually use it. Where it won't make sense is for people who equate value with minutes in the air. If your top priority is staying airborne as long as possible every single flight, this probably isn't the category you should be looking at. There are drones built for that, and they make very different compromises. But if your priority is confidence, knowing the drone will hold position, track reliably, and not fall apart when conditions aren't perfect, Neo2 does something special. It removes anxiety, and that's the part DJI doesn't really explain. The Neo2 doesn't feel like you're managing a machine, and it feels like a tool that's working with you, quietly doing a lot of work in the background while you enjoy flying. That's also why the battery feels like an interruption instead of a failure. You don't land because the drone scared you. You land because the session feels complete. Yes, you'll want extra batteries, not because the drone wastes energy, but because it makes you want to go again. That's a very different kind of limitation than simply running out of power. So here's my honest verdict after living with it. The DJI Neo2 isn't perfect, and it's not trying to be. It's a small drone that behaves bigger than it looks, flies calmer than you expect, and encourages you to explore more than you planned, right up until the battery reminds you to take a break. That imperfection isn't a flaw, it's a boundary. And for the kind of flying most people actually do, it's a boundary that makes sense. In the next video, I want to see how this drone behaves over longer sessions. Multiple batteries back to back, changing conditions, heat buildup, because that's where small drones usually show their real character. If that kind of real-world testing matters to you, consider subscribing so you don't miss it. And if you already own the Neo2, I'm genuinely curious, do you find yourself wanting to keep flying when the battery runs out? Or does the flight time feel just right for how you use it? Drop your experience in the comments. It helps everyone make smarter decisions. Thanks for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next one.